So Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes continue to dominate headlines across college football, a trend they look to continue this weekend against Arizona State, a game we absolutely need to preview and predict. But before we can do that, there's something else we need to talk about, and that's the fact that the fans are not the only ones paying attention to what's happening in Boulder, Colorado right now, as some of the nation's top high school prospects have not only been keyed in, but been on visits. Today, we need to ask the question, will Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes pull off some major flips? Something I need to hear from all of you on. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no, and today, two questions. First and foremost, the question I just asked. Do you believe that Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes are poised for some major flips? Can't wait to hear from you. And secondly, do you believe the Buffaloes will get a big-time win this weekend against Arizona State? Can't wait to hear from all of you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and I would love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And before we give a preview and prediction of this Arizona State game, we first need to turn our attention to the Coach Prime effect and how it's taken over college football. Because if we look, Coach Prime has dominated the college football news cycle, but it's not just that. If we look at the viewership of the games through the first 5 weeks, 4 of those 5 weeks, Colorado has been the most viewed game. In fact, they're the most viewed team in the nation right now by a wide margin, something they look to continue on. And dare I say their stock rose even in a loss to USC, because what we saw in that loss was a team that's obviously well coached. They never stopped fighting, and at the end of that game, after being down big, they were right there, side by side with USC and one of the most potent offenses in the nation, and they almost took it to the Trojans. The Trojans ended up getting out of there with a big win, but Colorado absolutely looked like a legitimate team in that game. That's why I always say, wins are wins, losses are losses, but not all wins are created equal, nor are all losses created equal. And this was a loss that the Colorado Buffaloes can take, look at themselves and say, we are absolutely trending in a positive direction. But if the fans can see that, and they very obviously can, so too can some of the top high school prospects in the nation. And they have been keyed in. Whether they've been on visits or just watching from the TV, you already know that Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes have piqued their interest. And several of the nation's biggest names, well, they've been giving feedback. From Bryce Underwood, a very talented prospect in the class of 2025, one of the most coveted prospects in that class, a name we're going to be talking a lot about. How about Nye Carr, a wide receiver who just recently decommitted from Georgia? However, he's talked about wanting to take a visit to the Colorado Buffaloes, and he loves what Coach Prime is doing there. How could you not? We can go down the list. How about a Cam Coleman? 5-star wide receiver currently committed to Texas A&M, but just got done having a visit to Colorado, and the returns of that were very positive. He was very high on what he saw. Now, we know Texas A&M recruits at an elite level, so it is going to be tough to flip a prospect from a Texas A&M, but whenever we're talking about Coach Prime, you cannot say it's impossible because we've seen him do wild things on the recruiting trail before. We can continue going. What about a Jeremiah Beeman, defensive lineman currently committed to Alabama, took a visit to Colorado and loved his time there? The point I'm trying to make is this. The nation's top prospects are keyed in, they're paying attention, and they are having a lot of fun. And Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes have a pitch that personally I find compelling. They can look at any one of these young guys in high school right now and say, hey, watch Dylan Edwards. Hey, watch Amarian Miller. Watch Kermani McLean. Because right now, Coach Prime has true freshmen really doing some heavy lifting for his squad. We saw Dylan Edwards burst on the scene from week 1 of this year, and he's never looked back. He is going to be a premier player in the game of college football. What about Amarian Miller this past weekend? Almost going for 200 yards on a half. He is now going to be a prospect that fans across the nation can't wait to watch play, and for good reason. He's that talented. Or what about a Kermani McLean? You knew this was a guy that fans across the nation, not just Colorado fans, but college football fans everywhere, were excited about the ability he possesses. He got to start showcasing that this past Saturday. So one thing that Coach Prime can tell these guys is true freshmen, they're not only playing, they're playing at a high level. And I'm not contending that Colorado is the only place that gets to utilize a pitch saying true freshmen are playing here, so you should come here. You look across the nation, Alabama has employed Caleb Downs as their starting safety. He's a true freshman. You can find them all across. But being able to point to so many different areas and say, hey, that's a trend that will continue, that's compelling. And especially when there are already so many eyes there and people are having fun. So I can't wait to see what the Colorado Buffaloes do on the recruiting trail, because I have no doubt that Coach Prime will be active in the transfer portal once again when that window opens. That is going to be must-see TV. But I'm also super curious to see what Colorado does in recruiting, because I think they're garnering the attention of some of the nation's top prospects, like some of the guys I just mentioned, and that was just mentioning a very small amount of the top names that are interested in the Colorado Buffaloes, whether that's taking a visit or getting more information on the program. Colorado is doing something compelling right now. And if you still don't believe that Coach Prime moves the needle, I have to ask you a question. What more do you need to see? Because right now, something I said in January, I don't think it's ever been truer. Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes move the needle. But now let's turn our attention to the game this weekend. Because as I stated earlier, dare I say Colorado's stock increased in a losing effort to the USC Trojans last week, really highlighting a point I say all the time. Wins are wins, losses are losses, but not all wins are created equal, not all losses are created equal. What I mean when I say that is this. If you play the Georgia Bulldogs, the number one team in the nation right now, and lose by 3 points, that's a loss. But if you played them competitively and lost to a last-second field goal, well, people are going to be talking about, well, that's a team, they played Georgia real close. If you play Utah State and lose by 45, that too is a loss. If we just have on your schedule W's for wins, L's for losses, that Georgia L and that Utah State L, they're both L's, but those two L's are not at all the same thing. The same logic carries over to wins, which is why I say Colorado's stock probably increased coming off of that loss because of the way they played. And I understand USC's defense is a huge question mark, but still, that offense is potent and Colorado never stopped fighting. So why do I think that information is important as we turn our attention to Arizona State? Well, because I think Colorado is ready for a little bit of revenge. They've taken 2 losses in a row. Oregon beat up on them pretty bad, and they've responded real well against USC, once again in a losing effort. But in a losing effort, you have got to be impressed with. Now they look at Arizona State, a team that they feel like they can beat, and a coach in Kenny Dillingham who Coach Prime is really high on. It was really awesome this week hearing him talk about Kenny Dillingham, because I've talked about Kenny Dillingham several times. I'm really excited for his future. I think he's made some amazing hires, such as Coach Samples, such as Brian Carrington. I'm super excited to see what the future of the Arizona State Sun Devils holds, because that's a team that has gone through a lot of chaos. And anytime I see a program go through chaos, I just wish that all parties involved, especially the players, find a way out of that chaos, because it's always tough to watch. And thankfully, it looks like Arizona State is coming out on the other side of their chaotic few years. Kenny Dillingham looks to be the guy to lead them there. But this year has been up, down, all around for Kenny Dillingham as their starting quarterback has gotten hurt. This is where I think Colorado is able to take advantage of this, because we started to see the Colorado rush attack start coming alive against USC, but I think they're going to continue implementing that this weekend, and Coach Prime has talked about that being a necessity. They have got to be able to run the football. But to me, the fact that they've been a little bit one-dimensional on offense only underlines how impressive Deion Sanders has been. Because as an opposing defense, let's not kid ourselves. For instance, in that USC game, the USC defense knew exactly what was coming. Colorado has not shown themselves to be a strong rushing team thus far this year, and they were down. So what do you think their offense is going to do? What they do best, throw the football. And still, they were finding success in the passing game, even though USC knew it was coming. That just highlights what an elite passing attack the Colorado Buffaloes field. This is a week where I absolutely think Colorado is going to take it to Arizona State, because I think right now Colorado is playing a better brand of football than is Arizona State. Deion Sanders is playing out of his mind, and now there are several different wide receivers that if you're a defensive coordinator, you've got to be worried about. You've got to be worried about Jimmy Horn. You've got to be worried about Xavier Weaver. You've got to be worried about Amarian Miller, and when Travis Hunter gets back, there's going to be a lot of weapons to feed, and on the defensive side of this, yes, I feel like Arizona State's going to try and keep this defense honest, keep them balanced, try and establish the run, try and utilize the pass. But if you can't keep up with this Colorado offense, you're going to have a hard time beating this team. And I seriously question whether Arizona State can keep up with this Colorado offense. So give me the Colorado Buffaloes by at least 13 points in this game. Can't wait to hear from all of you. I do think it'll be a good game. I'm excited to see what Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State look like in this game because once again, I am rooting for Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State. I thought he was a great hire there. He's a young guy, he's exciting, and he's made great hires outside of that. So this is going to be a fantastic weekend of college football, and this is just one of the games that are going to make it a fantastic weekend of college football. Y'all already know, I have got to hear from you. Let me know what you think about Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes getting some major flips, and then let me know how you think they fare against Arizona State. That's it. See ya.